ticket for the championship.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dimes and Buckets podcast. It's been a minute, definitely, but a new season has started. We're ready to rock and ready to talk hoops. So joining me as always, our team, I guess, not joining me, but Rach. Rach, of course, is back for the new season. Rach, how you doing?
Good, I'm good. I'm looking forward to another Raptors game tonight. Just looking forward to the new season. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be one of the most exciting that we've had in a long time. A lot of them, especially the East, I think has strengthened so much. So I'm looking forward to. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I'm looking forward to it.
For sure, absolutely. I think you said it well there. And of course, Greg below us, looking pretty smug today. A happy chappy.
No.
I don't know what happened last night, Greg. Something.
It's just first. Oh, just beat the Lakers. But everyone's going to beat the Lakers. It's not going to be a big thing this year because we're going to set our stall out today. I think about where teams are going to lie, and if they outperform that, then they'll be spoken about. But I feel like we're all kind of agree where the Lakers are going to fall. But I think you'll agree with the other night with it being Raptors' first game. The first game you just want to get a win. You don't actually care how close it is or what happens. You just want to get a win. So quite happy with that. But yeah, it's always nice if it's the other LA team.
For sure. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the Lakers and the Clippers today as well as we look ahead to the new season. And then I suppose that's a good segue in terms of where we're going to start today. Looking at, I suppose, the contenders and the pretenders coming up for the new season. If you look at you touched on it there, Greg, with the East. The East has been just a monster this year. When you look at the players they came to the East, and of course we'll get into some of the off-season transactions that took place. But the East is just so stacked. I'll come to you first on this one, Greg. How do you see the East shaking down? Who for you in the East comes out in the top of the pack, and who comes out at the bottom of the pack for you?
I think there's going to be, obviously, based on what we saw a couple of weeks ago with the sort of college showdown thing they did, I think we also had good Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson look, and especially Wembanyama, there's going to be a lot of teams that are just willing to basically sacrifice this season to not have to try and get the chance of the pick. So in terms of right at the bottom, I think teams like Indiana, who aren't great, I still think they'll probably move on from Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. I think Washington probably aren't good enough, regardless of whether they give Bradley Beal the worst contract in the NBA. Detroit will be okay, but it's a lot of young guys. Charlotte as well, I'm not too convinced about their coach or their coaching situation. And then Orlando, I think, will also miss out, won't quite get a play-in spot either, just because the young team, Banchero, looked really nice the other night, but they're still a couple of years away. And I still think if it gets to like 2 months before the end of the season and they're sat sort of like the 6th or 7th worst record in the NBA, that they'll just tank. And they'll try and go, well, might as well. There's no point trying to push to get, the 14th overall pick or 13th overall pick. You may as well just tank and try your luck and see if you can get, because if they got two like back-to-back picks and they had Wembanyama and Banchero, they would be a scary team going forward. So that would be my bottom. I don't know if you want to go to Rach about who she thinks will finish in the bottom. Or
I think it's pretty much the same for me. I think maybe I would throw the Knicks in there as well. Maybe not right at the bottom, but kind of outside of the play-in. I think maybe the Knicks may struggle this year. I would love to say the Hawks. I really, really would, but they're going to be. I just can't stand them. I don't know what it is, but it's just one of those teams that just can't.
I think New York looked okay the other night. I thought the Knicks looked okay the other night. I like their moves. I like Brunson. Him coming in takes a lot of the pressure off Randall. So if Julius Randall can go back to being an All-NBA guy, maybe they'll get a playoff spot. That's what's weird about New York. They can't really, because of like the market and everything, they can't really ever be seen to be like a tanking team. So they've always sort of be like kind of going for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very commercial that you can't really go for it and just tank it. Whereas with the others, it's kind of not expected, but it is
No
kind
one
of
cares if Indiana's 15 and 60. Like, no one cares.
yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
But yeah. I was just looking at the table. I know it's only 1 and 2 games in, but seeing the 76ers right down the bottom really makes me really happy. Just like completely, just stay down there. But yeah, I think we'll probably see the usual contenders at least right down the bottom. The top, I don't even want to start.
Could be anyone, couldn't it?
It's so hard. I know, Greg, we were speaking the other day about our standings, and you put Toronto outside of the playoffs. Really had a hissy fit, but it is genuinely, it's so hard to call this year because there's so many of those Eastern teams that have strengthened this year that would be, contenders. I think the Heat may miss out this year because they do have, an aging Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, and they think they may drop into the play-in, but other than that, the East is absolutely stacked. So yeah.
The East is weird. Like, you could tell me, I think Milwaukee are by far the best team in the East. I think they'll come out top of the East. And I think if Giannis is healthy, they win the East. But 2 to 7, you could tell me any order and I'd believe it. Like, Brooklyn could be the far and away 2 seed challenger for the 1 seed, or they could completely collapse. Like, same with anyone else. It's a ridiculously hard conference to pick, and it makes a change because a couple of years ago it was just like the East wasn't much at all.
No,
you touched on it. You guys touched on it a bit there, but when you staying in the East, clearly there's that sort of upper tier echelon of teams and the lower echelon and that middle pack. But even that lower to middle pack, there's no easy games, is there? When you look at, you guys touched on maybe, Charlotte, Orlando with Paulo Banchero the other night was just out of his mind.
He was good,
Indiana, New York. I mean, these teams that you would maybe put outside of that top tier of teams, but those aren't easy games. I mean, going into Indiana with the moves that they made at the end of last season, touched on the young upstart in Orlando. Even New York, like you just touched on, Greg, the move they made in the offseason to bring in Jalen Brunson, of course, RJ Barrett and crew still in New York. So, and Philadelphia, I mean, sitting bottom of the East. I mean, well, that's not going to stay long, especially with the way that James Harden, in the first 2 games, at least the resurgence that he's had since the end of last season. So really, I mean, when you look at it, there is really no easy games. We just touched on moves sort of that in staying in the East where, through the off season, who for you guys moves that you see, was it the Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland move? Obviously, Malcolm Brogdon going to Boston. Those are the 2 that stand out probably for me in terms of, or even is it a small move like the Raptors bringing in the likes of Otto Porter and some 3-point shooting and keeping that continuity? Maybe it wasn't a move necessarily. Maybe it was keeping 13 players together and allowing them that group to grow and then adding a veteran piece.
I really like I really like the Brogdon move to Boston. Like, he gives them secondary scoring, and he can basically run the bench unit. And he's a really I think the other night you saw it against Philly. They were trying to, because Jason Tatum's like such a menace and such a hassle, that they were just doubling him or not doubling him, but they were always worried about where Tatum is. And then everyone else, when they get the ball, seems to just look for Tatum, whereas Brogdon's got that thing, or something looked like it the other night, where he was determined. He was going to drive to the basket. He was going to be the one to score. He was going to pull up and shoot. Like, I think it's a really good move. I think for what they paid for him was absolutely nothing. To get him, I think he's a really good option. If he can stay healthy, he's really, really good, and he's on a decent contract. But that's the thing. The reason he was so cheap is he can never stay healthy. But Boston, with him, if they can keep him fit the majority of the season and keep all their big wings fit, and Robert Williams comes back, then that could really push them on. Obviously, they've got the coaching issue. They lost their coach. But yeah, I really like the Brogdon deal. I like the Brogdon deal more than I like the Mitchell deal.
Right. How about yourself, Rach?
I actually really like the Rudy Gobert deal to the Timberwolves. I thought that was a really, really good deal. They got a lot of players out of that, and I think he'll really, really, really thrive over there. So I really like that one. Also, just on a personal note, for obviously the Raptors, that was great bringing in Otto as well. I think it just gives us a little bit of character and a little bit more, depth and variety off the bench, because one of the main issues with the Raptors over the last year or two has been that our bench production has been absolutely woeful. So I'm hoping that moving into, the next season, and obviously with the development of certain young players on the team, we can, move forward with at least a lot of bench production, and hopefully get a little bit better.
And 40% Otto Porter, 40% career 3-point shooter, some much needed 3-point shooting that the Raptors missed out on. Definitely, it stretches last year, particularly with injuries to.
So he going to the bench unit then.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, he'll probably be part of the bench unit. I would think. I would think that's probably where. I mean, there's an old adage in basketball: you always want to come off the bench with scoring.
Yeah.
Myself, I think I agree with you. I think I like the Brogdon move. I think that was it was very evident last year that was going to other places for buckets was, I think, at times for the Celtics something that they missed, and have it and a true point guard, right? Somebody that can sort of run the show for them and get guys touches when they need to get touches in certain spots. So I think for me that's probably one, but a bit of a curveball I guess I'll throw it out there is, and I touched on a little bit, is if the Sixers can get James Harden back to some semblance of what we've seen from James Harden, that could be a massive coup for them. Making Tyrese Maxey even your third option if Harden gets back to the Harden that we've seen before. So I think for me, sometimes it's a move that you don't make necessarily to bring someone in, but a move that you make internally. And I think maybe for me that could be a big one. But we shall see. Of course, we didn't touch on Brooklyn yet.
I didn't think the Mitchell deal was awful. I just thought it was like, I don't know. I just think it was. I think it's more weird on Utah's side of things that they accepted that package over what the Knicks would have offered anyway. Because Cleveland picks aren't going to be bad; they're going to be good picks. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. They got everything they wanted out of it. The Jazz, but I feel like RJ Barrett and 2 firsts is a better package than whatever Cleveland could have offered, which is just strange. But I think he'll fit in fine. But it's just I worry about his defense. Like that was just the amount of effort he was showing at the end of last season in the playoffs. Like it wasn't even like, he was just getting beat or anything. It was just like desire. It was like James Harden type defender, just letting guys breeze past it. So I don't mind the move, but I don't know. He needs to improve his defense. Or if it turns out that's effort, then it's probably worse that he just wasn't trying and he basically threw the towel in. But there'll be an okay seed. But like I said, with the East, you could tell me they'll be the 2 seed or the 7 seed, and I have no.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a clue. Well, one team that we haven't got into yet in the East, and we are going to get to the West, folks, but we'll just a couple more talking points through the East, is the Brooklyn Nets. And obviously lots of turmoil in Brooklyn in the offseason with KD wanting out, and then all of a sudden KD was back in. Ben Simmons, who didn't play for them last year, all of a sudden he's fit and healthy and playing again, which is great on a personal level for him. But obviously, the guy's been out for so long that he just doesn't look himself. He doesn't look himself yet. And I think the big question in Brooklyn is, how is that dynamic going to work with Kevin Durant coming out with his comments? Is that I'm not here to babysit Ben Simmons. How do you guys think? How do you think things play out in Brooklyn? Do you think it ultimately comes good for them? Do you think it really is just a case of a guy has been off for, over a year and he just needs to get reps and needs to get games in order to get himself back to where he is? Or do you think that they truly things aren't good in Brooklyn and there's a problem there.
I think on paper that team is unreal. Like there should be absolutely no problems with that team, but it's just the different personalities and the different dynamics in that team make it a little bit of an issue. Also, comments in the press, like you were saying, don't help. If you've got someone that's going like Ben Simmons, I know he was saying last season that he was struggling with his mental health and everything. If you've got someone that's going through that, surely you want your teammates to be there to support you and help you through it. But comments like that really don't help. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they will struggle massively, but I don't think they are strong contenders for the East this year. I know they'll probably get into the playoffs. They always do. But I don't think they're a strong contender to go all the way to the finals. But I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. The second half, maybe get the first quarter of the season out of the way. They'll hit their groove. They'll go on a run, and they'll find their mojo, and everything will be absolutely fine with them.
Indeed. Well, before we move on to the West, I'll come to both you guys and I'll give you mine. Give me your top seed in the East and your worst seed in the East.
Greg?
Top seed, I've got Milwaukee, and bottom seed, I've got Indiana.
I'll go top Milwaukee and bottom Orlando.
I think I'm going to go Milwaukee. Actually, you know what? Scratch it. I'm going to go Boston. I think the Celtics will win the East. Regular season, I should say. Top in the East in the regular season. And I think the Knicks are going to finish bottom of the pack.
The Knicks?
Yeah.
Imagine that would be what the league want. If the league could pick any destination for Wembanyama, it would be New York, wouldn't it?
Uh-huh. Yes, indeed.
100%.
They're going to enter the sweepstakes.
100%.
So comment in. Brooklyn won't be much more than what we already saw. Conference semis likely, maybe eke out into an Eastern final, but the culture at the Nets is so wrong. Reach on the money. Team building is a balancing act. That's the big question with Brooklyn. If they can pull it together and Steve Nash can work his magic and pull things together there, then they could win the East. If they don't, they could finish outside of the playoffs. You just don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of question marks. I think you touched on it, Greg, with the East before we leave the East is there's just a lot of question marks in the East in terms of a lot of these teams and what levels they can get to, where it's going to be such a dogfight that injuries are going to play a huge factor. Consistency is going to be a huge factor, and internal growth within your squad, within your group of players is going to be huge as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That covers the East. Let's head over to the Western Conference. And like I said last night, big one last night in the West, Clippers-Lakers. Clippers tried to throw the game away.
Tried our best.
Tried their
Quite
best.
Leonard determined to take a shot from every angle.
Ultimately
Came on, it was just like, I'm shooting.
I think what we saw last night, I think what we saw last night was a tale of two teams in LA, wasn't it? The Clippers are a lot of people's favorite to win the West this year, obviously with the acquisitions of John Wall and a healthy Kawhi Leonard, if he can stay healthy, and they can navigate his load management the way the Raptors did in 2019. And then for the Lakers, dropping to 0-2 in the season, Russell Westbrook, just couldn't make a shot, save his life. It's been the story of his sort of season last season.
Did you hear his interview?
Yeah. We said he was.
I played
to be fair to him, to be fair to him, I thought he did work hard. I thought he worked hard, but at the end of the day, like you're making how many 40-something million a year? Like
$47 million.
Yeah.
For hustle, effectively.
You got to make shots. You got to score. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, it was a good a good game. Tale of two teams. Rach, I'll come to you first. How do you see things panning out in the West? Who's in that top echelon of teams for you? Maybe middle of the pack and lower pack.
Phew. I mean, I think it's Warriors, right? It's the Warriors that are coming out on top.
I think so. If you can stay healthy.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
Draymond Green doesn't
yeah.
punch anyone else, I think we'll be
Yeah.
okay.
I think the Clippers are going to win it personally, but come out on top.
You think?
Yes.
I'll take that. I'm being no. I just can't rely on their health. Can't do it.
If they stay healthy, that's me. I'll put that caveat in.
Yeah,
there, as long as they stay healthy. But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead, Rach. Sorry.
So yeah, sorry. I think Warriors will come out on top. Down the bottom, Rockets, maybe San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, they're bad.
The Kings, Oklahoma. I mean, it's any one of them.
Jazz.
On the bottom. They just kind of chop and change each year. But yeah, I think maybe I'll go with the Rockets this year. Yeah, I think I'll go with the Rockets down the bottom this year.
Fair.
Who do you see? Who do you see in your top, Greg? Your top, say, 3-4 teams challenging. I mean, you guys have said the Warriors. I said the Clippers, but outside of maybe the Clippers and the Warriors who we talked about, who else do you see that could challenge for the top spot, top seed in the West this year, heading into the playoffs?
Denver definitely could. If you think last year they were a 48-win team with just Jokic, without Jamal Murray, and without Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is a unicorn. He's like 6'10". Mm-hmm. He can pull up and shoot from anywhere. He can drive to the basket. He's got a great handle. He's good. He's good defensively. Like, if they could keep him healthy, he's a 20-point per game scorer. But that's the big if, is keeping him healthy. So I think we're obviously going on this based on everyone being healthy. So if Michael Porter Jr., Murray, and Jokic can stay healthy for a whole season, I don't see why Denver wouldn't win an extra 12 to 14 games. And that makes them, what, a 60, 62 win team? You're probably looking at the 2 seed really in the West, maybe even the 1 seed, depending on how good you think Golden State are going to be. Like Clippers, I think, are good. I think we've probably got the deepest team in the NBA in terms of sort of 3 through 10. Obviously, there's a lot of teams that have got a 1 and a 2, like a big 1 and a big 2. I don't think Kawhi and Paul George, in terms of their levels, they don't match other teams anymore. They did a few years ago. It was like when they had the big 2, it was like something that really wasn't around any team. But obviously Boston have improved a lot. I would probably say that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have surpassed those 2. But I think 3 through 10, the Clippers have the best roster in the league. Like, I just think they do. I think it's so deep. Like you said, that the 2 sides of LA. If you compare the Lakers 3 through 10, I think they genuinely might have the worst in the league. Like, I think you could throw any team and I could tell you maybe the Spurs, and then other than that, I think there'd be 2 players on every other team that would improve this Lakers roster. But I think the Clippers will be good, and then Memphis are so young, but they did so well. So Memphis, maybe if they kick on, would probably be my top 4. I don't know. It's not like Memphis. Like, obviously, when an older team got to where they got or did as well, and then they were beaten how they were beaten, it could maybe damage them. But I just feel like this Memphis team will take it in their stride. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a building block." I really like Desmond Bane. I think he's great. Jazz, a superstar, future MVP. And then with Phoenix, I think they'll drop off. Dallas will drop off as well. So I think it's probably Golden State, Denver, Clippers, and Memphis would be my top 4.
Do you think Phoenix has dropped out of that sort of top echelon of teams now? I mean, for me, they sort of come in, the teams that you just talked about there, I think Phoenix now comes in just behind those teams just based on Warriors.
I think they probably missed their window. I think they probably missed their window. Like, Devin Booker's great. He'll probably be a part of the rebuild whenever that's done, because Chris Paul won't have many years left. But I don't see how DeAndre Ayton's now your third guy in that team, and he didn't want to be there in the offseason. He signed a contract with Indiana. Like, he'd signed a contract to go elsewhere. He wasn't going to come back. They clearly didn't want to pay him. And then he had the comments on media day that he hadn't spoken to Monty Williams at all since Game 7 of the playoff. Like, I just think it's a really weird dynamic at Phoenix now. They don't quite know what they want to do. I don't think they know they don't want to completely tank and rebuild, but I don't think their roster's good enough to compete with the rest of them. Minnesota will be good as well. They've improved. It'll be interesting to see how Rudy Gobert and Cat molds together. I don't know how that spacing will work at all. I mean, Cat will probably get to play more power forward, which is what he wants to do. That's where he's better. And New Orleans as well. They'll be really, really good. Like I think New Orleans and Minnesota could quite conceivably finish above Phoenix this year. Especially if Zion is going to be Zion again, because he looked like he was proper Zion the other night.
Yeah. Do you not think
He looks in great shape, Zion Williams?
Do you not think maybe Devin Booker might start to look elsewhere?
Maybe.
If you say that they've missed their window, which I think they have, was it 2019? The bubble season?
2019 was when 2019 was the season before they got Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And they won. They were doing really bad. They snuck into the play-in.
Yeah.
And then won 7 out of their 10 games in the bubble, or 7 out of 8 games in the bubble, or something.
Yeah. I think it's that. But I think that potentially Devin Booker could go elsewhere, because I think he's unreal, and I think he really could thrive somewhere else. Where that would be, I have no idea. I was just looking at, like, while we were talking, I was just looking at the potential places that he could go. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he would thrive somewhere else. So
yeah, I don't know who could. I feel like Devin Booker would be at a stage where he'd be sort of unaffordable for most teams unless you're willing to give up a star.
Yeah.
Or like a young star, like for Toronto, for example, you would have to give up Scotty Barnes to get Devin Booker. There's no package that Toronto could offer without offering that. Say Orlando, there's no package they could offer without
the same
offering.
thing with KD.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just some players
that he would have ever come to Toronto as if Scotty was part of that deal, but Toronto is not looking to give up Scotty.
And Phoenix aren't going to attract another. They're not going to attract a free agent. Like if they got rid of Booker and Chris Paul retires, they're not. And Ayton's not going to hang around. I can see him requesting a trade next year. Or just being traded next year. I don't think Devin Booker would hang around for a rebuild. And then even if they got rid of them all, they're not going to get another big free agent. Like, they're in a really weird catch-22 where
in limbo, aren't they?
Yeah, like if Chris Paul goes, they're going to have a lot of money, like cap space. I think Chris Paul got left, like 3 years?
I think it's 2.
If they keep it 2, maybe. If they keep him for that, I don't know if they will. Like, he's obviously really, really good, but you don't bring him in for like another 3-year project. If you get what I mean, like, you're not going to go, okay, we're going to get rid of everyone and keep Chris Paul and Devin Booker, 35-year-old, 36-year-old Chris Paul, and then a young star like Booker. But it'd be interesting to see him go elsewhere. I just don't know how many teams could actually afford it.
Yeah. Got a comment here that says, any reason why Golden State don't win it again? I think if they don't stay healthy. I think as long as they stay healthy, I think they've got a very, very good chance. Because obviously Steph Curry is Steph Curry, isn't he? Like,
best player in LeBron's era.
Yeah. The only thing with Golden State, I just feel Golden State, they're the champions, but they weren't really, to me, they weren't last year. And I just feel like that with a totally different Clipper team, Memphis is that much better, having some experience under their belt. With like, it's going to be a different Memphis team this year in the playoffs. Denver, we've already touched on with Jamal Murray back, entirely different team. There's just, I just feel like there's it's going to be tougher this year for them in the West, if that makes sense. And I feel like even in the playoffs, they weren't really tested all the way to the finals. I don't remember them getting really, really pushed. And I feel like this year, I think they're going to get a bit more of a push if everyone stays healthy. So that would be my answer to the Golden State team. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they could easily come out of the West. They could easily win the championship. I'm not saying they're not a good team. I just feel like there's going to be a bit more of a test this year on them. Obviously, Jordan Poole signed that massive contract. So more pressure on Jordan Poole. this season after he just signed the contract. How are things going to remain in that situation with Draymond Green? What happened in the offseason? That linger question. Probably not, because they have good culture there, but Suns and Nuggets will be good. Celtics, 76ers, Raptors, Bucks are good in the East, and Cleveland much better too. Yeah, for
Is that
sure.
a Miami Dolphin little logo? That's cool.
I think so.
I'm claiming that.
Yeah.
That's a Miami Dolphin logo.
This is
too right.
We're in Bills country. Sorry, Football Sports Talk. But this is Bills country, baby.
Do you think they trade Draymond? Do you think
probably
they'll
not?
trade Draymond?
I think it depends. I think it depends on how the situation pans out. I mean, if it blows over and everything's good, then you're not gonna blow that up until you have to, right? I mean, just win a championship.
Just go next year. Yeah, you go free agency.
I think it'll just depend on how things pan out. It looks like it's been put to bed, the situation. You know, that obviously not to that level, but like you hear stories about. I mean, I remember hearing a story of Charles Oakley punching out one of the Sixers at their shoot around years ago. Like stuff like that. Stuff like that happens, but you just don't hear about it as much. I mean, obviously, once the video got leaked, you know, it was damage control for the Warriors. But hopefully, it looks like for their purposes they've settled it. I think it'll depend on how the dynamic plays out. We touched on in the West, though. We gave our Golden State, Clippers, Denver as our sort of top echelon, and then I think in that middle pack you can throw New Orleans, Minnesota, Memphis. Rach touched on the Rudy Gobert one, and how that might change things in Minnesota for them with Cat, and then you've got the teams in the West that are going to enter into the Wanyama sweepstakes with OKC, Sacramento, San Antonio. And that brings us to the Lakers. Obviously, throw Dallas probably in that middle pack as well.
I agree.
But that brings us to the Lakers, and I was looking at the box score for them last night, and outside of you had Lonnie Walker on 31 minutes. 36 minutes. LeBron James, 36 minutes. Antonio Davis, 31 minutes. Those three guys combined for 71 points of the 97 that the Lakers scored. Patrick Beverley played 33 minutes. Russ Westbrook played 27 minutes. Austin Reeves played 21 minutes. And Juan Toscano-Anderson played 21 minutes. Those four guys, that's 70 for... That's like 90 something, like 101 minutes of time. Those four guys combined for 7, 11, 19 points. 19 points in a ridiculous, just absolutely incredible. And you touched on the depth, Greg. That's a massive problem for them, because when you look down at even with Dennis Schroeder, I know he's injured, but really outside of him, who's going to come back and even make a bit of an impact for them? So where do we put the Clippers? I think I saw the comment up there. I think it was 1 night for 19 because Westbrook didn't make a field goal. He finished with 2 points. Beverly, I think, I have to look at the box score again, but if it's 1 for 19, he was the only one that made a field goal for those two. So, the Lakers, obviously, huge story in the West. Where do you guys see the Lakers fitting into that pack of teams that we just went through? Obviously, we wouldn't put them in the top end, but Where do they finish? Do they finish in the playoffs? Do they finish outside of the playoffs? How does it end up in Laker land?
I think I said to you guys the other day, they're in the worst position they possibly could be. That they're like a middle team for everything they've spent. They've got absolutely nothing that's theirs going forward. Tell you what, New Orleans right now are very, very happy because they've got the Lakers pick this year. And they're sat going, if you just keep getting beat, that would be great. And we could add another young superstar to our already young team full of superstars. But for everything they've spent and the fact they've got nothing to show for it, they look like someone described it on Twitter. So they look like a team that's this team are going to be really good when a guy gets back from injury. But then this is just their team. They're not missing someone. And we had that conversation, who's their third best player? Like Westbrook's not their third best player. Or you want to say Patrick Beverley's their third best player, or Lonnie Walker? Like they don't have anything really. They're going to have to. It's going to be basically LeBron's going to go for the scoring title this year. I think there'll be a play-in team, and that'll just be that. And I think maybe towards the deadline they'll trade Westbrook for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and that'll make them a play-in team. Because I don't think I'm thinking it makes them slightly better, but then you're still relying on the health of Anthony Davis, who went down last night again and looked like he couldn't really move for the start of the second half of the game, and then said, I think I'm probably going to be okay, which is really, really good. And yeah, I just don't understand. Their only option is going to be to trade Westbrook and just get a playing team. And then LeBron signed up for another year, and they're just going to have to do this for another year and then move on. I honestly don't know what they do. I don't know what you think, Tim, but I think there'll be a play-in team. I just don't see what they've got.
I was going to say play-in, but Rach, what do you think? What's your thoughts on the Lakers in terms of where they finish up this season?
I think the same. I think they'll probably just make the play-in. I can't see them breaking into that top six. I think maybe 8th or 9th. Maybe
8th would be a good effort. I think
maybe even 10th.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's.
I think that's probably fair show.
It's not looking good. The Beverly deal is strange.
So it's funny.
I've never been his biggest fan, anyway. But yeah, it's a very, very odd deal. I don't think he fits well at all. Westbrook last season just showed that Westbrook it just shouldn't be there. I think he's a good player. Look, I think he's good. He can be good, but just not. It's just the right. You get certain players that are fit for certain franchises and certain ways of playing, but I just don't think that Russell Westbrook can show his full potential at the Lakers.
I don't know if he fits in the current NBA.
You what? Sorry.
I don't know if he fits in the current NBA. Like he's not. His play style's not. I know you can have guys that like aren't 3-point shooters, but these guys that aren't 3-point shooters are normally 6'10" forwards or they're centers. They're not 6'3" guards or 6'2" guards that drive. And then on top of that, he doesn't want to run a bench unit either. He's got an issue with being on the bench. So he's more than just like an on-court problem. He's clearly causing an off-court problem. I agree with you. I didn't understand the Beverly deal when it happened because I was like, that's another really volatile personality to throw into this mix. The Lonnie Walker deal was weird. They needed 3-point shooting and defending. Lonnie Walker averages about 28% as a career 3-point shooter and is not a great defender.
Yeah.
And then they extended Rob Pelinka. Is that right? Did they extend?
Yeah.
They extended their GM. So
they extended him. Yeah.
I honestly don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know if they're listening to LeBron still or not, but like they need to stop. I don't know why if they trade Westbrook for Hield and it'll be Westbrook and probably a first, won't it? They won't just it'll be Westbrook and probably the 2027 first. Factoring in a 2027 first to LeBron James now is ridiculous. He's not going to be there. There's no point.
The problem with trading Westbrook, I mean, the contract's got to be within 15%, right? So he's making 47 a year. So you're looking at a max. You're probably looking at least 2 players plus maybe a pick, at least one pick to make the salaries match.
What does Buddy Hield earn? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up, but he's not. I don't think he's going to be making close to
23 million. He is
23, so within 15%. So you're still probably 20 million off.
So you got Miles Turner as well, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe Miles Turner as well. It's part of the package, but
he's 18.
Yeah, so now you're getting close. Now you're getting closer. Yeah, 41.
Do you think that makes them that much better? Because I don't.
I think for the Lakers it does. I think it's going to be. I think it's just someone that wants to take on an expiring deal.
They'll just buy him out. Surely they won't.
Yeah, or buy it out. Yeah.
Yeah, they won't. Well, because I don't know. I would say now, like, if you were to tell me now, do you think the Lakers would be closer to Sacramento or the Clippers? I'd say they'd finish closer to Sacramento this year. Like, they could genuinely miss the playoffs completely. They're just so bad.
What do you
Right.
think
Well,
they do to actually change it round? Like
Trade AD.
Yeah, complete overhaul.
They need to trade AD. Like, this is their only asset. He's the only one. If they trade AD, if they were to just blow it up and trade AD before the deadline this year, they would get a lot of picks and young players, because a team would still take the chance on it being still Pelicans Anthony Davis, and then you'd still be able to trade LeBron next year.
He's literally made of like glass, though.
Yeah, someone will take the risk.
Worry about him coming out that something's not right with his ankle or his knee, or he's so injury prone that I know I wouldn't want to take the risk on him. Although I know when he's on it, and he can be absolutely fantastic. But it's the same thing, like whether you take a chance on an injury prone player that might score you 30 plus points for 3 games in a row, but then he goes off for a month or two at a time, and then you're left without, that core 30-pointer double that he would usually get you. But if he's that injury prone, obviously for a smaller team, it would make sense because you just want to get Anthony Davis in. But for a real contender team, I think it's just too much of a risk.
Yeah.
Right. Let's finish up this episode with a couple. We'll look at predictions for individual awards. Let's look at the scoring leader first. So obviously last year, Joel Embiid won it. Your top 10 in scoring were Joel Embiid, Giannis, Luka, Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Jokic, Tatum, Booker, Mitchell, and Curry were your top 10 scorers in that order. Rach, what do you think? I mean, when you look at, do you think Embiid maintains the crown with James Harden getting back to maybe more James Harden-like and maybe getting more touches? Or does James Harden become more of a facilitator and that just increases Embiid's numbers? Does Jamal Murray coming back? Jokic finished 6th, and he was 3 points behind Embiid in the scoring. Does Jamal Murray coming back give Jokic that little boost to get over the top and become the scoring leader? Jason Tatum, of course, finished 7th. He's now got Malcolm Brogdon with him. Does that increase his scoring ability? Donovan Mitchell now moving to Cleveland. What do you think, Rach?
I think if Harden continues the way he started this season, I think he could be in contention for it 100%. Hasn't he dropped 2 30-point games for his first 2? I know he scored 31 last night.
I think it was 35 night 1.
Yeah, so I mean, dropping even because they lost the first 2 games, so even dropping a 30-pointer when you're losing, I think he could be in contention for this year. Obviously, you've got Braun as well, who is going to want to. He's always up the top. He could do it, but I'm going to go with Harden. Yeah, I'll go with Harden
for the scoring leader.
That'd be a redemption story. That would be good. That would be proper redemption.
How about yourself, Greg?
What are you going with? Probably Luka. I feel like he doesn't have the help this year as much. Christian Wood looked good the other night, actually. He had a hot hand for a little bit, like 8 or 9 minutes. He was just the hot hand, and they were just going to him for every play or running every play through him. But I don't think he's got the help, and I think he's good enough to just sort of take over games and quite happily. I think Luka's got this weird ability that LeBron's got, like he can coast and get 30. And I think Luka's good enough to just coast and get 30. He doesn't have to do everything. And because he's got the ball so much, he's their only option. I'll go, I think Luka will do it.
Right. I'm going to go for the scoring leader. I'm going to go Jokic. I think I'm going to go Jokic for the scoring leader. I think with Denver, and if Jamal Murray's back, I think that's going to open things up even more for the Joker. So I'm going to take Nikola Jokic for the scoring leader.
Nice.
Right. Okay. MVP. So Joel Embiid, but just missed out last year. Jokic back to back. Who are you guys thinking steps up this year and becomes the regular season MVP?
Greg, you go. I
Go
need
ahead,
to
Greg.
I don't know. I don't think Jokic will win 3 in a row.
No.
Because if he does, then you're genuinely got to factor him into GOAT conversations, which is weird.
Does it factor into your reckoning with how tough the East is? If someone can lift their team to the top of the pack in the East, does that give you a little bit? Is this finally the year if Philadelphia were to win the East, is this finally the year that Embiid, if he puts up numbers like he did last year, gets his MVP?
I mean, if you put up numbers like he did last year, yeah, I just don't know if he will with Harden. If Harden's able to stay healthy, like Rich said, he's been so good, and they are running plays through him. But obviously, Harden's also getting assists, so I don't know. I kind of want to say Tatum. I think if Boston are the 1 or the 2 seed after what he did in the playoffs last year, they can say that doesn't factor in. It's all about narrative with MVP, so they factor everything in terms of the narrative. The fact that he lost his coach in the offseason, and he's this young and up and coming superstar. I think Tatum might do it. And I'll go. Yeah, why not? I'll go Tatum.
I'd love to see Ja Morant.
That's my pick, Ja Morant.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
I'm taking Ja Morant as mine.
Yeah. I think he's probably a few years off, but I think he has the potential, 100%. 100%, no doubt. But I think he's a few years off. I'll probably go. I don't want to. I hate him. I think I'm going to go with Joel Embiid. I just
hate him.
I can't stand him. But I think maybe this year is his year. If the 76ers can get their shit together and really go on about, then I think Embiid might clutch it this year. But he's hoping that he can't, because I just can't stand him.
So harsh.
Well,
so harsh.
If
or Luka. Giannis as well is also a contender. There's so many. This league is plagued with talent, and we're so lucky to have this amount of talent in the league that it is an open race. But I think Embiid might do it this year.
Right, I'm going to go with Ja Morant, like you guys.
I'd love that.
Like I said, but like you said, there's just so many options. I mean, you could look at, is this a redemption story for Kevin Durant? You know, if Simmons and Kyrie, if they can pull it together in Brooklyn, you know, if Ben Simmons gets back to what we know Ben Simmons is capable of in terms of his scoring and his defense, you know, does that elevate Kevin Durant to MVP status? It
Steph,
could be.
if he's going for another ring.
Yeah.
Steph will get that. He'll get shouts. He'll go through about a month spell of being amazing, and remember, he's MVP, like he was last year, last November, I think, or December. He was a great last December, and everyone was like, he must be MVP. I think we even were talking about it. If he kept going, he'd be MVP. But someone like Zion would be brilliant. Imagine Zion did it after not playing for.
Yeah.
Well, Kawhi was out all last year.
It could be someone off the Clippers, yeah, for sure, definitely. You know,
Kawhi would be great.
Rach,
I think he got a soft spot for Kawhi. It's great.
Of course.
You can't talk bad on him. It's brilliant.
I think Rach is right. Like last year, we had so many superstars that were injured. Like Kawhi, Zion was out. The list just went on and on, right? But I think now, if you look at this league is so flush. Ben Simmons, of course, was out. This league is so flush with players, like really skilled players that have come back and returned from injury, that there's so many storylines and so many unanswered questions about teams that it's just going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold. And of course, we will be with you guys all season long, breaking things down, looking at the NBA. We're back. Like we said, it was a long summer, but it's good to be back talking hoops for sure on the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk Network. For all of your hoop needs, make sure that you join us definitely next episode and going forward. Last word to you guys. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just ready for it.
No.
Ready for the ride.
Yeah, me too. Ready to watch basketball again.
Yeah.
Like watching preseason's good. It's okay. It's fun, but it's not like proper basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that Celtic Sixers game the other night, and I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to just watch basketball. Ready to ruin my sleep schedule for 8 months. Woke up today at 12:15 in the afternoon because I stayed up and watched the basketball last night. So great fun.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm staying up tonight to watch the Nets and the Raptors. I think tip-off is midnight here.
Yeah.
So
it's easy.
yeah, me and Andy are staying up. We're getting some snacks and some beers, and we're gonna have a nice
Go
evening
on.
watching
Go
the Raptors,
on.
the Nets. Fingers crossed.
Full slate of games tonight. Hope everybody enjoys their night watching hoops, and we will be back soon for Rach and Greg, the Dimes and Buckets podcast. We'll see you later.
Bye.